So definition of business ecosystems, I just do it really quickly, but the most important part, we're looking into a new and unique value proposition for the customer. So usually this is something we have not seen in the market because customer needs have changed, and probably the biggest change we're really shifting into new concepts of remote working, of engaging with our banks on a digital channel, even do our admin or like with the tax authorities over a Zoom call, everything has changed. And also our customer needs and behavior has changed. That's the reason why there's a lot of now potential for new and unique value propositions in the market, and it can be filled with ecosystem design and basically with a thematic way of combining different actors. So before, we also heard about Black Ocean strategy. So one part in this kind of idea is creating a Black Ocean strategy. And the concept of Black Ocean strategy is a little bit different from what we have been known for a long time, because there was a blue and the red ocean strategy. And the red ocean strategy is basically build whatever else the competitors building and just compete on the price. So this is something basically probably not very successful, because at the end of the day, you're destroying your own business. Then there was a movement 20 years ago into blue ocean, and blue ocean strategy was saying you have to differentiate a little bit in one or two aspects. So you're trying to find out, what is kind of a different value proposition, different points you can apply to be different from everyone else in the market. And then the next move was into Black Ocean. And Black Ocean means you design something, the combination of different actors, no one else in the market able to compete. And you probably will say, oh my goodness, this is not good if you don't have any competition, so we have monopolies. But in the end of the day, it's the ambition, right? You have the ambition that you build something, the connection of different actors, creating value. No one else is able to compete. There will be always competitors, and there will be always kind of ecosystems copying exactly what you have been doing. And I've seen it in like small Switzerland with like ecosystems for living. We had like one really nice one in the beginning. Nowadays we have 10 ecosystems for the same kind of purpose. But at the end of the day, you will always just be successful as you design it and as you configure it for your customer. And that's a huge difference, because you cannot just take a blueprint from another country, say, well, we go to any kind of successful company, we're going to copy one ecosystem, we're going to implement it to Indonesia. It's not going to work, right? Because the actors, the decision makers, the regularity and environment, everything is different. So usually we really start from scratch. We see what is the customer behavior with design thinking. We build first MVPs, and then we design the entire ecosystem for your use case. And that's basically the path to success, that you put a design mindset into something you create for your customers with like connected actors. And this is also kind of things we have been stating here. It's not only design thinking, it's also system thinking. So you need like different states of mind. And of course, you have to start with the customer needs. And finally, if you are aiming for a Black Ocean strategy, you're trying to find the best actors in the market, you define really good designed value streams, and finally you get something out people can apply and have some kind of a dynamic way of engaging with different actors. So if you go on a little bit about this whole idea of ecosystem design, there are like three lenses we should look into. First of all, is always the new customer needs. As I mentioned before, design thinking, new customer needs is like the core of every ecosystem design, because you have to understand the value proposition to get something out. Then, of course, you have new technologies. I mentioned already APIs, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, you name it. But you need this enabler technology to connect the dot and be really efficient with the interaction of these actors. And then finally, we have a whole dimension about new business models. And the new business models are also quite important, because in the past was all about I have a service, I sell it, maybe I have a couple of partners and they help me to sell my service to other kind of entities. And this was kind of the basics of selling products and services. Nowadays, we can apply business models for like exchanging data. We can exchange algorithms from AI. We can have any kind of other exchange of cryptocurrency, whatever you have in mind, or just knowledge or information. So there are many, many things we can look into the value streams and designing totally new business models in connection of all these actors collaborating and getting something new out to the market. So this is kind of the idea about these three dimensions. And then, of course, most of the ecosystem we see are more in the explore part, right? So the unique, a new value proposition, and it's not kind of your current business you're trying to make new. It's really something you see the opportunity and you're trying to create this opportunity with new actors. And usually a lot of companies are staying with their own business model, what they have been doing maybe the last 20, 50, 200 years. At the same time, the building ecosystem for the explore part, saying, look, there might be kind of a new opportunity, and we are applying ecosystem design to tap into this market opportunity, to have kind of a second pillar of growth, maybe because one pillar might be weak or it's not happening anymore. So you have kind of a second way of generating revenues in the future. And of course, the history I mentioned already, we're coming from design thinking over system thinking, platform thinking the last 20 years ago, and now we're moving from the platform economy into like ecosystems. And of course, some principles from the platform economy are still valid, but on the other hand, the ecosystem part might be a little bit more radical because you have also kind of the idea of decentralized organizations and of course using heavily new technology to make it happen. So at the end of the day, you have like a summary of these things, what I was just saying: unique solutions, new mindset, fitting actors connected, lasting value streams, new business models applied in the system to make money. And of course, sometimes also have a new market role, because in an ecosystem, you not only give your products and services, but you might have customer access, or you might have knowledge, or you have information, and these things have value for the ecosystem. So your role, your market role, with something you put into the ecosystem, you're generating the value with someone else, might be a little bit different from what you have been doing over the last years, or like a core element of your company. So when it comes to like in general ecosystems, of course, a lot of terms around ecosystem, like innovation ecosystem, transaction data ecosystems, information and knowledge ecosystems, and all of them are ecosystems I usually use to build my business ecosystem on top. Because if I build something, like to sell it, and there's already kind of a good payment solution out, I use the payment solution out. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, and then just tapping into all these ecosystems with data, with transactions, with innovation, and build on top my business ecosystems with different players to bring the value proposition I have in mind to the market and to my potential customers. When it comes to like different ways of thinking, I was already mentioning kind of the linear process, integrated company. This is basically, a lot of companies are still operating this way. It's kind of a supply chain of different tasks. You're putting things together. Typically speaking, like a car manufacturer, they have like the engine, the tires, and all these parts, and finally you assemble the car and the products out in the market. And then, of course, on the right side, you have like the mental model of open capital market economies, with everyone is collaborating with everyone. And between is somehow the business ecosystem. Then, because there's still some rules, but at the end of the day, you're really dynamic and free to connect the actors and create the value proposition to the market. And this is basically very, very focusing on this ecosystem design, to create something more dynamic into the market, that everyone is connected. The reason why companies looking to these things, usually the revenue multipliers in the market are much higher if you're a network orchestrator or part of an ecosystem. If you're a regular asset builder or service provider, usually your valuation on the stock market is quite low. But if you are having these network effects, we see kind of the tendency that you get like multipliers between 8, sometimes 12. We've seen also the hype with the tech bubble now, with companies going much higher. But usually as an asset builder or service provider, you're always sticking to like lower revenue multipliers, because usually you don't have these network effects and you don't have kind of an exponential way of growing. Usually grow linear, and with linear growth, of course, is also reflecting back how your company is valuated. When we look into now different application scenarios, what if? So we see, for example, that the traditional way of doing business, the traditional kind of silos are broken, right? And new combinations are coming. And I always say it's a Big Bang ecosystem theory. So we have like the bang and something is happening, but don't ask me how it looks like in 5 or 10 or 15 years. There's something happening in the market. People start collaborating. They do different kind of ecosystem ideas and projects. But at the end of the day, as it's dynamic, this will be still kind of be a flowing moment, how these things are coming together. Just a couple of examples very quickly. So for example, we have like this example. It's not with Emirates. It's more like with one of the big manufacturers of airplanes. They were just asking themselves, what if we're not producing airplanes anymore? They will say, oh my goodness, why should they not produce airplanes anymore? Because they're making billions of revenues with airplanes. But it's really kind of the ecosystem. What is the ecosystem of traveling, of having this experience without building airplanes anymore? And now we're looking at the future of 10, 20, 30, 50 years. How is the new experience of going somewhere, of meeting, of having fun activities? This might be totally different from what we see right now. And this is a question you have to ask yourself, how are you going to disrupt yourself, but not disrupting yourself, because they will still produce airplanes, but it's a second market opportunity. You can build something and create value in the market. Another example, mobility concepts for car manufacturers. I mean, this is the perfect way of looking into ecosystems, because for me as a customer, I like to travel from A to B, and I don't like to own a car, and I don't like to have to struggle with the insurance and all these other things. For me, it's important mobility, right? Going from A to B is the most convenient way. Take any kind of transportation, what is available, but the best one, and kind of on my preferences. And here's like a great opportunity for an ecosystem, because if you just look into cars and electric scooters, electric bikes, and you are a powerhouse, electric powerhouse, there's a whole ecosystem. You can connect to these producers of these kind of infrastructure. You can look into car manufacturers, electric vehicles, and connecting the dots and being the orchestrator doing all these things. That's just an example about mobility. Of course, you can use it also for automation. I have a lot of companies in the B2B sector, they do automation, they decentralize the entire software process out to the customer. Before, they were building their own software. Now, over cloud computing, the customer's building the software for the automation processes. They're turning around the business models, they're turning around the way how value streams are coming together, and the model is now totally shifted from what they have been doing the last 50 years. Or the last example, it's all about Web3. When we're looking into Web3, it will be all about communities and ecosystems. There will be no way out, because we're connecting these things, we're having value streams, and kind of when we look into Meta 2.0 in the next 5 to 10 years, it will be something related to a community or ecosystem. And once you understand the principles, you're able to design Web3 applications. And other way, you might just copy the internet into Web3. I don't know if this will be successful for your future innovators. So the last one, just about time-wise, and looking into ecosystem capital, how to measure. There's one way of measuring it, and a lot of companies started already doing these things, to measure the ecosystem capital. And when you look into traditional companies, on the left side, I was just displaying like insurance, telecommunication, automotive, banking. You can speak for any other kind of traditional business. Usually the ecosystem capital is quite low, and we concentrate on, if your service industry, of course, human capital or intellectual capital or like your finances. But in the end of the day, we need more ecosystem capital. And this is the way usually how we measure the ecosystem. It's the capital, your connections over the network, how you scale, how open you're for innovation. And this is basically leading then to like the whole aspect of ecosystem design and creating the value out of the ecosystem capital for your company or for your organization. So just the last slide, I know time-wise we have to move on. So thank you for listening in. I hope we have a little bit of discussion about these kind of inputs I've given today. And if you like to connect, happy to connect over LinkedIn. There's also a video of the new book, AI and Innovation. So you can flip through a little bit on the video, on the pages. So happy to connect, and thank you for listening in today into this webinar.